You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Arya, and this is your unbuffered edition of the NXT report for Wednesday, April 26th, 2017. Thank you all for listening. This week on the show, there were a ton of buffering issues. And that seems to be the top story because, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I have Netflix. I've got all these other streaming devices. And the only one that ever have problems streaming anything on is the live stream of the WWE Network. This show, according to the timer afterwards, lasted 52 minutes. It took me an additional 22 minutes to finish watching the show. And it's not like I pressed pause and, went to the bathroom, got something to eat, did whatever. No. This was an attempt to watch the show beginning to end in one fell swoop. And, it's the old adage, it takes 2 hours to watch 60 minutes. At this rate, the WWE Network is going to prove that one right. So anyway, done with complaining, let's get on to the show. The show kicked off with Nikki Cross. I don't want to say running to the ring. I don't want to say walking to the ring. It's like she wandered into a large open area that just happened to have a wrestling ring in the middle of it and 300 people watching her. She crawled into the ring and then crawled right back out of the ring, went over to where the ring announcer was, and now was the ring announcer nice enough to hold the microphone up to her face or stand up or hand her the microphone? No, she held the microphone in her lap, and so Nikki Cross had to bend over and speak into the announcer's lap, calling out Ruby Riott to come out and play. This brought out Ruby, who very cautiously got into the ring. The fans began chanting "fight," so they gave them what the fans wanted. They began clubbering on each other, referees finally intervening as they fought outside the ring. Ruby didn't stay down. Nikki never stayed down. Nikki dove off the steps a number of occasions onto Ruby. And every time they seemed to part, they just get away just long enough to go after each other. And finally, the referees and the security, at least 8 large men, it took to separate these two women. We were reminded of last week when Hideo Itami returned and laid out the glorious NXT champion, Bobby Roode, with a go to sleep. And so we fast forward back to today, and Kayla tried to interview Bobby Roode, but she was cut off by the champion. Roode said that things have changed, and this is his NXT. Itami can challenge him all day long, but if he wants a championship opportunity, he is going to have to earn it. Perhaps they will have a number one contenders opportunity at some point in the future. That led us to our first official match with Andrade Cien Almas versus Drew McIntyre. If you recall, this match was set up last week when Almas was bullying McIntyre at the WWE Performance Center. Thankfully, Heavy Machinery was filming the bullying because without it, we may not have believed that such shenanigans had happened. Almas was all about his normal shenanigans again, but Drew was having none of it. The highlight being when Almas did his thing where he lays in the ropes all cockily. But when he did that, Drew gave him a running boot, causing Almas to fall onto the cold, hard concrete floor. Drew exploded from here, punching Almas down into the corner and coming off the top rope with an elbow to his standing foe. Almas got in some chops, but Drew caught him and dropped him with a power slam before picking up the win with the running boot. Mr. Regal's backstage and announced that Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross would sports entertain against each other later tonight. And then we got part one of a series of video packages asking the question, who is Roderick Strong? You see, it's a question because, if it was a statement, you'd have to imply that he was really Jim Neidhart. Yeah, I'm still doing a really bad joke from 22 years ago. Anyway, I want to put out Roderick Strong has been on NXT now for over 6 months, and we're finally getting the introductory video packages for the guy. Now, keep in mind they've done this for a number of guys, most notably Finn Balor before Balor won the NXT title. And while they're all very good, this one included, none of them ever lived up to the quality of that first video with Balor, which, by the way, I think is still on the network somewhere, so check that out. Kona Reeves was out next. This was the match that really caused me to go angry with the buffering, because this match, as a match, went about 45 seconds. If you include the entrances, the whole segment probably went 4 minutes. It took me 15 minutes to watch this 4-minute segment, which is just ridiculous no matter how you cut it. Here's the entire match. Kona attacked at the bell. Aleister cut him off, kicked him up and down his body, and then hit him with the black mass and pinned him. Like, no matter how much you might enjoy Aleister Black, and, he's enjoyable to watch, it should not take you 15 minutes to watch that. Then, in something almost as shocking, a brand new announcer. Now, you might recall that they've hired a lot of pretty brunettes, and I know the joke is that they're hiring a bunch of girls that look like a young Stephanie McMahon, and, maybe you could say that, well, this girl, she looks anything but a young Stephanie McMahon. She's very perky. She's very blonde. And unlike literally every announcer in the history of the last 5 years, the very first thing she said was her name. She introduced herself. She said, "Hello, my name is Christy St. Cloud," which I'm trying to avoid saying that she looked like a stripper and she sounded like she has a stripper's name. But, she does. She's just a very nicely dressed stripper. And, that's really unfair because she might not actually be a stripper, but it's just like there's something about her that you think, oh my God, she's a stripper. But anyway, I was so shocked that she introduced herself that I never realized until later that she never actually asked Ruby Riott a question. She summed up the day's events, and Ruby Riott then cut a promo about her upcoming match. And she said that she rebels against the norm, like Sanity, but the difference is Sanity wants everyone else to conform. And so I imagine if everyone else dressed and acted like Sanity, Ruby would then turn into a bubbly, peppy blonde, like Christy St. Cloud, the new interview girl. Kayla was running out of the arena to ask Andrade Cien Almas about losing to Drew earlier. Even though I know it took me about 6.5 hours to get to this point in the show, in quote-unquote real time, only about 15 minutes have passed. And in that 15 minutes, Andrade had showered and completely dressed into his nice dress clothes and was now leaving the arena with a plethora of beautiful women. Kayla wanted to know about Andrade losing to Drew. Drew being the person that he is, Andrade being the person that he is, offered Kayla a chance to be part of his groupies, but Kayla ignored him the same way Andrade ignored the question. Ruby Riott came out for her match against Nikki Cross, and the match never started. Nikki Cross attacked her outside the ring. I don't think at any point did they actually get in the ring. They fought all over the creation, this time concentrating it up by the staging area. They went at it for about 2 or 3 real-life minutes before the 8 referees and security geeks from earlier came out and broke them up. And I think part of what makes this work and part of what makes it look absurd is the fact that the referees and the security guards are all bigger than these 2 women. And it's funny because it should be absurd that they're all having trouble containing these 2 relatively small women. But it's like at the same time it works, you know? Anyway, this time Nikki Cross got the better of Ruby Riott got the better of the fight. And then Cross was literally carried away by 4 people. And when I say literally carried, I don't mean she was shoved to the back like they usually are. I mean, like, they each took a limb and carried her away. You know, there was a cartoon in PWI that I still remember from like 20 years ago where they were making a joke out of a cage match, and so both wrestlers were put in separate bird cages to be led to the ring. They kind of need that here, where these 2 both need to be led in separate bird cages to the ring, and it needs to be a cage match, you know, because then this is the only time in wrestling history that you have a cage match that's literally there just to keep the 2 of them in the ring. Mr. William Regal talked to Asuka backstage and told her that we will have a battle royal next week to determine her next challenger. Asuka and walked away. Main event time. Gentleman Jack Gallagher challenging Tyler Bate for the WWE United Kingdom Championship in what was considered Bate's second official title defense. Now, before you give me crap for saying that, I know he defended it at Access. I know he defended it on non-WWE shows. I am literally just repeating the story of what they say on the telly. As expected, these 2 put on an excellent wrestling exhibition. Almost mirror images of each other, reversed each other's moves and holds, and then reversed their reversals into more reversals. We went to commercial, and back from it, Gallagher has taken over with the longest armbar ever. But even though it was a rest hold for, you know, whatever, they did enough with the armbar that it wasn't just your normal, you know, let's lay here for 6 minutes and get heat armbar. You know, it was an entertaining armbar, which you don't say too often about an armbar. Bate eventually got out of the 30-minute long armbar and got a near fall with his hesitation German suplex. He ended up in another armbar when he went for a regular suplex, but he got out of that again. Bate took over, sent Gallagher to the outside, but when he went for a suicide dive, Gentleman Jack caught him with a no-hands headbutt and then hit another one inside the ring for a 2 count. And I recognize that this is not nearly the same level of headbutt as happened in New Japan, but for the love of Christ, can we stop using headbutts in wrestling? It's a fucking work. Excuse my language. Stop cracking your skull on each other. Fucking A. Anyway, Bate used his rolling kick and hit the Tyler Driver 97 for the win. And what was a nice little note at the end, they showed 3 or 4 of the wrestlers from the UK title tournament sitting in the front row, including Wolfman and Mark Andrews. And they were all giving Bate his props. They're all clapping for him and cheering for him and had smiles on their face, with the exception of Pete Dunne, who sat there and stared a hole right through Tyler Bates' head. So when that show starts on the network, whenever that's actually going to start, I imagine that's going to be their first title feud. Could be wrong, though. But anyway, that's going to do it for this week. I am back on Sunday with Payback, which I'm sorry, I actually had to think for a second what was the name of the show on Sunday. I almost said Extreme Rules and I almost said Backlash. Neither of those shows are happening this Sunday. But until this Sunday, when I'm back with Payback, thank you for listening, and have a good night.